Hi, I'm Jane. I'm from Kearney, New Jersey, but I grew up right here in Jersey City where Liberty State Park is, where the ferry takes off to Ellis Island. And this was where if the ancestors or the immigrants would come through the doors over there and come over here and take trains to wherever their final destination might be. It might be just in New Jersey, it might be Chicago, it might be somewhere out in the Midwest. At least this is what I've been told. I'm not exactly sure.
And just looking at it today, you can see the platforms exactly where the trains would have pulled in, and you can almost imagine it crowded with people, can't you?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And to think that my grandfather came through this place here in Caden.
That was in
1905.
In 1905. And what was his name, Jane?
John Feeney.
John Feeney.
From Galway.
The old John Feeney from Galway, eh?
Yes,
so we're going to walk a little bit in his footsteps today, actually, and head over to Ellis Island.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, it's pretty.
Speedy got roasted. Wait, no. Yeah, put on my story.
Behind me here is the pier, or what remains of it. They're just sticks coming up in the water now because it's a very old pier, but it's a poignant one for us because it's where the immigrants first landed when they came to downtown New Jersey City. So they would all pile off onto that pier, and the building behind me there is missing the wooden platform that came out, and you go up the wooden platform into the building. There's just a little green balcony there now entering into the building, and inside was a big hall where people then entered and onto the train station to take them all around, I guess, their new world in America. We're just about to land on Ellis Island, and I'm just taken away by the emotion of just being so close to where millions of Irish people would have had their first foot on American soil. We're just going to go on now to the island, and I'm really looking forward to exploring the halls. There are 3 halls seemingly here, and it's been really newly done up, so there'll be lots for us to learn and explore. So this is the hall, is it, Jane, the immigrants would have come into?
Yes, this is the great hall where the medical checks, I believe the medical checks were being done. They would have benches that they would sit around, and they would go through lines. They would have ropes or whatever set up to go through in a line, and you would come up to a medical person as one of the stops anyway, and they would evaluate you, and they would write a chalk mark on your coat depending on whether you had a medical issue or not. I believe T was for trichinosis, which is an eye infection which sent many immigrants back home. They would be separated from their families, or the whole family would have to turn around and go back to whatever country they were from.
There was a great book you were telling me about that you had read with your book club.
Right.
What was that book that described a situation similar to that?
There's a book called Ashes of Roses, and I used it with my 6th grade book club. And it's a story of a family that comes from Ireland over here, and little Joseph, the youngest brother, has trichinosis. And Joseph and the father end up going back to Ireland because of the trichinosis. And the mom and the 2 sisters stay here in New York and end up involved in the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory in 1912. So that's a great book if you want to. It's a young adult book.
To dip into the period.
Yes, to really see the history of immigrants coming here in the early 1900s.
And you can imagine many of those type of stories were played out here in this great hall.
Exactly, in this room, yes.
For a small little while with his work, and we said, come in here and look for any more statue. And he said, I'm looking everywhere, I can hardly find it. Well, it's a big one in Cove.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it is. It's a big one.
So look what we found in the corner here, Deborah and Lynn and myself. We found Any More. Now, Any More is a big thing, of course, for us in Cove, but she's standing there with 2 children in Cove, I think, but she's here on her own, but her pockets are full of money, so I hope that was a good sign. A good sign for Any More. So she was the first person that came through here, through Ellis Island, and was processed. So and she came from Queenstown and Cove.
Deborah, your folks came through here as well?
They did, but not my Irish relatives. My German relatives did. My grandfather was a little boy who came through Ellis Island, but my Irish...
Did he keep stories? Did he tell you stories about coming through here?
Oh, yes, he did. He did. He told me, how he was about 4 years old, almost 5, and he held his mother's hand, and they went on a long trip across the ocean. And then when they got here, they took a long train to Trenton, New Jersey, and they had a big party, and his father carried him home that night.
So they were well welcomed, as I say.
Yes.
Lovely. And then your McGraths came through here as well?
Yes, and the only knowledge that I have of that is I have a pair of shoes that I was told were my grandfather's shoes. But unfortunately, my father passed away when I was 2, and my grandmother passed away when I was 8, and I never thought to ask my mother which grandfather that the shoes belonged to. So I have these shoes, but I'm not sure who really they belong to.
And he was 19 or so, was it?
No, he was 9. Yeah.
So they were small little shoes.
Yeah. So I have these shoes, but I'm not really sure whose they are.
Deirdre, you've joined us today on the tour of Ellis Island because your family, the Maguires,
they came over here. They were living in Black Lion, my grandfather.
So Black Lion is between Cavan
and Fermanagh, which is like the seat of all the Maguires. And I've actually been to the Maguire Castle up in Enniskillen, and they have a fascinating folk museum there as well. So I've come full circle here.
And when your Maguire came here, who was that? What was the name of that Maguire that came here?
That was John Maguire.
And he came here through Ellis Island?
He came through Ellis Island, yes.
What year would that have been, Deirdre?
It would have been 1904. He was 26 years old, and then he met my grandmother here, who was also from Cavan. She was a Brady, and they got married and had 2 children.
And did they stay around this area here of Ellis Island?
They stayed in Manhattan. They were up near St. John the Divine is where they raised the family. And
I know we were looking at the cases in the hall there when we came in, and that you mentioned the luggage cases.
Yes.
And you mentioned a little story you had about that. Would you like to share that with us?
Yeah, well, my grandmother had a trunk that she brought with her, and I still have it up in my attic, and she brought it through here, and it had her clothing and her sister's clothing, and she had some cast iron pots and pans that was still in the family when I was a child.
Yeah, that's what we've noticed today, that people all have little memories of things that came through, and that even though it's down 2 generations, they still have those, whether it's shoes or clothes or pots.
And there was a Belique teapot, which I guess was a treasure at that time.
Oh, it still is.
That smashed into 100 pieces at some point.
We call those smithereens.
Smithereens.
And Fermanagh?
Is Belique.
Oh,
Belique, yes, the Belique from Fermanagh. That now, I assume she got it there and brought it over with her. It was very, very old and just glued together when I was a child. And again, I don't know what's happened to it.
Thanks, Deirdre. Thanks for sharing your story with us.